All right, problem 91 is just solving an exponential equation. And so in class we talked about there's actually two different ways to solve this. One is anytime I have an exponential, like 2 to the x equals 3, and I'm trying to solve for x, if I convert it to a log base 2 of 3 equals x, then I've solved for the variable, right? So if I have an exponential expression equal to a number, just convert it to a log and do anything else I need to do to solve for x, and I'm good. So one of those options is just to do log base log is base of the exponent, so base 8 of 64 equals x minus 2. And then to solve for x, I would add 2. And then I would be left with log base 8 of 64 plus 2 equals x. Now, I don't know if you remember, but log base 8 of 64 is the same thing as log base 8 of 8 squared, and I know that those will actually cancel each other out, leave me with a 2. Yeah? So this is actually 2 plus 2, which is 4. But if you left it as that would be okay, but if your options if you didn't have that as an option in a multiple choice, then maybe you would type that in and see what you would get, and you would get 2. Okay? The other option is convert it, and not convert it, but rewrite 64 as 8 squared. So these are kind of grouped together because they both have to do with that. I can rewrite 64 as the same thing as this base. And if 8 to the x minus 2 equals 8 to the 2, the 8's are already equivalent, so I'm really just dealing with x minus 2 equals 2. And if I add 2 to both sides, then I get x equals 4. So if you wrote this, or if you wrote that, that would be fine if it was open-ended, but if it was multiple choice, you'd probably have to match it to the 4. Okay? Number 92. So 125 and 625, I notice on the power chart that 125 is 5 cubed. So 5 cubed to the negative 2n minus 2. And 625 is 5 to the 4th to the negative n. Okay? So if I've got 5 to this equals 5 to that, the 5's are already equivalent, so I'm really just dealing with this equals this. Now you have to remember that you're actually multiplying. So this will be negative 6n minus 6 equals a negative 4n. Okay? And then I want to get all the variables on the same side and all the constants on the other, so I'm going to add 6n over to the side with the negative 4n. And I'm left with negative 6 equals 2n. And then, in order to solve for n, divide by 2. So n equals a negative 3. And there we go. On 93, I've got an exponential equal to a number, so I just convert. Log base 8 of 87 equals p. And that's my answer. And you don't need to round, you don't need to type it in to get the decimal. On 94, we've got this e. So before I can deal with the exponential, I need to go ahead and get rid of 2.4. So I'm going to add 2.4 to both sides. So I've got e to the x equals 81.4. Alright, so there's two different ways to work this. One thing I could do is convert it to a log. Log base e of 81.4 equals x, and that is the answer. But the other option is to write it like this. So when I have e to the x equals 81.4, I don't know if you remember, that's great, but if you don't, you can always look at the calculator and notice that e to the x and ln are around the same button. So like 10 to the x in log, that's kind of a clue that log without a base is base 10, and that natural log is base e. Okay? So natural log and e are inverses of each other. So if I just take the natural log of both sides, then I'm left with x equals the natural log of 81.4. So these are both the answer, right? Because natural log of x is the same thing as log base e of x, okay? So as far as multiple choice goes, natural log would be the answer on the multiple choice, but if you just matched it to that, then you would be good, okay? All right, on 95. So I've got an exponential equal to a number, so convert to a log. log base 15 of 30 equals negative 2k. I need to solve for k, so I'm going to divide by a negative 2. But here's the thing, do not divide the 30 by negative 2 because this is log of, this is an operation. So it's kind of like, I mean, if I had the square root of 15 equals 3x, when I divide by 3, I'd have to say this. I couldn't say all of a sudden that, right? The 3 does not all of a sudden jump inside the square root, okay? So I divide this whole side by negative 2, and I can leave that as my answer, or I think dividing by negative 2 same thing as multiplying by negative 1/2. So that would be another way to write the answer. Okay. 96. 96, the first thing I'm going to do is try and get the exponential alone, so I'm going to divide by that negative 7. So divide by negative 7, and I'm left with e to the x plus 5 equals 41 over 7. So we can work it one of two ways, kind of like the problem before. I can convert to a log, or I can use natural log. So I'm gonna do it both ways. So one is to convert. So log base e of 41 over 7 equals x plus 5, and then just add 5 or subtract 5 over. So log base e of 41 over 7 minus 5. So that's one way to work it. Or when I have e to the x plus 5 equals 41 over 7, I can just take the natural log of both sides. So natural log of this and natural log of that. Those cancel each other out, and I'm left with x plus 5 equals the natural log of 41 over 7, and then just subtract 5. So natural log of 41 over 7 minus 5. And then keep in mind, these are the same because natural log is log base e. It's just another way to write it. Okay, number 97. So number 97 just has more steps in it. I want to solve for the variable n, so I need to get rid of the negative 8, the negative 2, the 2, and the 19. So first thing I'm going to do is undo addition or subtraction. So I'm going to add 2, and I've got negative 8 times 19 to the n plus 2 equals negative 66. And then I want to divide by negative 8, and I'm left with 19 to the n plus 2 equals 66 divided by 8, the most simplified it can get is 33/4. Just cut them in half. I've got an exponential set equal to a number, so convert to a log. Log base 19 of 33/4 equals n plus 2. And then the last thing I want to do is subtract 2. So I have log base 19 of 33/4 minus 2. And that is my answer. And then 98. So very similar to the last one, even one more step. So I'm going to add 1, and I'm left with 78 equals 2 times 18 to the negative 9m minus 10. So I'm going to divide by 2. And I'm left with 18 to the negative 9m minus 10 equals 35, 37? No, 39. I don't know what I'm thinking. 39. Alright, now we want to convert to a log. So I've got log base 18 of 39 equals negative 9m minus 10. So then we add 10. And I've got log base 18 of 39 plus 10 equals a negative 9m. And last thing I'm going to do is divide by the negative 9. So I'm just going to divide this whole side by negative 9. And remember how I don't like negatives in the denominator? So the only thing that would do is just basically change the sign of the numerators. Negative log base 18 of 39 minus 10, all divided by 9. And that would be m. Okay, and that is 91 through 98.